I spent the morning with my Savior, which brought me through my afternoon. And by the time I reached the evening, my soul was singing hallelujah. Like a ship tossed and driven, I've been up and down. Like a prisoner in prison, yes, the devil had me bound. But I know my future's brighter than the past I left behind. Had a little talk with Jesus, and the victory is mine. I spent the morning with my Savior, which brought me through my afternoon. And by the time I reached the evening, my soul was singing hallelujah.
Good morning, and welcome to Good Morning with me, your host, Caffie. I greet you with Jesus' joy, and I am so excited. You may want to click, like, share, and invite a friend to watch today's episode because I know it's going to bless your life. Today, I have none other than the Reverend Henry Lee Clay Jr. He is the president of H. Lee Clay Coaching and Counseling, LLC, a professional practice and ministry of holistic health and healing, which treats the mind, body, and spirit. As a practitioner and proponent of a holistic theology, Dr. Clay believes in the biblical mandate of ministering to the spirit, soul, and body so that a person can realize balance, health, healing, and total wellness. He is certified as a health and wellness professional, a clinically trained and certified pastoral counselor, religious scholar, and certified life coach. He is on track towards board certification in clinical chaplaincy and is a diplomat in pastoral psychotherapy, grief and bereavement counseling and support, and lifestyle behavior change are some of his specialties. He has helped many to achieve significantly improved physical as well as healthier emotional and spiritual wellness outcomes. Reverend Clay diligently develops partnerships with a network of clinical mental health practitioners, faith communities, and community service providers to explore the relationship between physical, spiritual, and emotional, as well as mental health and wellness entities. He is the author of 3 self-published books. Don't Waste a Good Storm, that's one. The second one is It's in Your Reach. And then the third one that will be released in April 2021 is Released from My Shame. Oh my God, we're going to have to bring you back for that one. And will be released through the New Beginnings publication. This man of God, if you will, is totally equipped. He has a BS from Thomas Edison State University, an MA in religious studies, postgraduate training in marriage and family counseling, M.Div in pastoral counseling, care and clinical counseling from UTS, New York, a Doctor of Divinity from the University of Lynchburg. Look, guys, he's certified. He's part of professional associations. You need to look him up. But today we welcome him here to talk about self-care for the lay leader, the lay person, and as well as the leader and the pastor, the clergy person. Welcome, Reverend Clay. Welcome. God bless you and welcome. Thank you for coming on today.
Thanks for having me, Reverend. I am honored beyond words. And so grateful for this privilege.
Thank you. Let's jump right into it.
Let's do it.
Let's go here because we're in the pandemic, the global pandemic. And although we want it to be over, we're slowly coming into another normal. It's not going to be the old normal, but another new normal, if you will. And we have pastors who are still dying from this pandemic, from COVID-19. We have pastors who've had COVID who are still sick from the side effects of COVID. We've had other individuals, and some have resorted back to practices of eating and bad wellness practices. Look, they were doing bad things prior to the pandemic. And now we're here. People have gained weight. I watch folk on Zoom and coming on live, and I'm like, oh my God, you have literally did the 30-pound COVID in this season. And so, and come on, our Black people, Black and brown people, were already bad with nutrition and health. So where are we? Tell me, talk to me, talk to us. Where are we and where are we going in this season where pastoral self-care is concerned?
Yes. Well, when we look at our history, in terms of our mindsets and attitudes toward our health in general, there has always been a lot that is left to be desired with respect to our apathy regarding our health. Oftentimes we tend to spiritualize even our health. I say that we have one of two choices in terms of what guide the things or the mindsets that guide our behavior when it comes to our quality of life. I say that we can choose to be passive spectators of our own demise, or we can choose to be passionate participants in our own deliverance. One of the things that, unfortunately, it seems to act as a tie that binds many of us together from a cultural point of view is our attitudes, our apathy, our collective apathy towards our health. Obesity, for example, is a real problem. Talk about COVID. One of the major components that increases and enhances the probability of becoming infected rather, are dealing with the real dark side of COVID-19 is PreExisting conditions, and one of the reasons, besides of course the issue of a lack of quality access to many healthcare facilities, but there's another serious driving force that creates or has created such a high rate or disproportionate level of people of color being affected by COVID. That is the pre-existing condition of obesity, and Christians and Christian leadership is that we tend to be just as irresponsible as everybody else when it comes to caring for ourselves. And I think that's even even more complicated when we as Christians, especially as Christian leaders, are caring for others. And so COVID, according to a recent study published by the CDC, there was a study done late last June, that showed that mental health challenges, which included depression, suicidal ideation, and things of that nature, were ranging anywhere from 25 to 40%, depending on what part of the country you live in, and this includes people who are engaged in ministry. So the body of Christ is probably in more trouble, in as much as the inactivity that's come as a result of being, contained in our homes and that sort of thing. But like I said, our attitudes toward our health, in my opinion, is also something of a pre-existing condition. That kind of fuels a lot of the numbers that we're seeing with respect to people being infected and dying.
Right. That's good stuff. Now talk about those attitudes. right?
Yeah.
Because prior to COVID, we were already heavy. We got
Yeah.
into COVID, we got heavier, if you will.
Yes. Yes. Reverend, I believe it's cultural, to an extent. I believe that some of it, I believe that it's culturally driven. I believe that it's also psychologically driven. I believe that it's emotionally driven. We all know that food, especially sugary stuff, is the most overused, antidepressant, in existence. Um, um, let's talk about. I think I shared with you a few weeks ago when we first talked about coming on, when you first extended the invitation. We talked about a biblical character
Yes.
who who whose story so powerfully depicts our present day, context from a church cultural perspective. And that's Tabitha in Acts chapter 9. Of course, Luke also refers to her as Dorcas. And what's interesting about Tabitha is she portrays the perfect example of an individual who is truly in love with the Lord and who is engaged in ministry, who is dedicated, to the cause of Christ and making a difference and an impact in the lives of other people. In the book of Acts, Luke speaks to how wonderful she was. In verse number 36, he describes Tabitha the person. In verse 36, she's a devoted disciple. She's a doer of good deeds. She helps hurting people. But then in verse 37, Luke shows us Tabitha the victim. In
Mm.
verse 37, Luke is quoted as declaring that and I'm quoting, in those days, of course, he's referring to verse 36, when she's so powerfully engaged in ministry, making a difference in the lives of so many people. It says, and it came to pass in those days, meaning the days of verse 36, that she was sick. She was sick and died. Now that's interesting. She was sick. Luke says she was sick while she's ministering, to the ministry, while she's ministering to the misery of the masses with the mercy of the master. He says in verse 37.
Wait, say that again, because you just went right past us, and that was good. While she was ministering to the masses, come on with that again.
In her verse 36. In verse 37, Luke says she was sick. She was already sick. In verse 36, while she's ministering to the misery of the masses with the mercy of the master.
You better come on through here.
She's making a difference in her ministry in the lives of other people. But she herself was already sick in ministry. She's a healer who is functioning in the context of her own woundedness.
My God. So she's a wounded healer.
She's a wounded healer. And so what was it that physically, emotionally, or mentally troubled her to a point? In her verse 36, where it finally caught up with her verse 37 and killed her. And the question begs to be asked, how many of us, as pastors and leaders and lay ministers and believers, how many of us are in our verse 36 headed to a verse 37 simply because we won't deal with what we know?
You need to stop right there. Stop. What? Hold up, wait a minute. We won't deal with what we know.
Yes. We know we're obese. We know we have diagnosed hypertension and this newly coined phrase, diabesity. Diabesity. That's a phrase that is often quoted by a nutritionist and others. I
Mhm.
have a back. I kind of hang out with the American College of Sports Medicine. I'm certified as a personal trainer through them, and that's one of the phrases that they often refer to: diabesity. Because with obesity, sooner or later, chances are that person will become, diabetic, and then of course that births a plethora of other potential challenges. And so to that end, what was it that killed Tabitha? What is it that's killing us? Why are we so negligent with dealing with what we know? Tabitha, according to Luke, was sick. That word "was" is the key word in her verse 36. Many of us struggling in our verse 36 with issues that we are aware of. But instead of choosing to become passionate participants in our own deliverance, we prefer to remain passive spectators in our own demise. And as a result, many of us are needlessly falling by the wayside. And then now, of course, it's COVID season. Now, this was pre-COVID. Now you look at compound effects of COVID, that have been brought about and birthed into our existence in this season of COVID. The situation is dire. And so to that end, you would think and you would hope that we would be inspired, that we would be encouraged, that we would be, inspired to embrace change. But again, I think this thing is so deeply rooted in our culture. This passivity. I think we kind of subconsciously embrace and we kind of embrace and passively subscribe to our woundedness. Was it depression? Was it some kind of mood disorder that impacted and influenced Tabitha's perspective? As ministers, as leaders, as servants, as simply being human. It's because we're human. We all have our challenges. We all have cracks in our armor. We all have exercised behaviors that have helped to sustain our own woundedness, denial,
Right.
shame. We put things off. Well, I'm gonna eat better starting next week. Well, I'm going to get to the gym. I'm going to start walking. I'm going to stop eating. I'm going to back off of the margaritas, that sort of thing. But these behaviors have, in fact, again, been, in my opinion, are birthed and perpetrated by what I believe to be a culture of passivity when it comes, as I mentioned earlier, to our health. And there's this what I call religious spookism.
What's that? The religious spookism.
Yeah, religious spookism. You remember that term we dealt with earlier. That theology. It'll just happen on its own.
Your weight loss.
Yeah. And so what was it that killed Tabitha? What's destroying so many of us, especially in this context and in this season of COVID? Was it obesity? 67% of African Americans are obese. That's almost 7 out of 10. Upwards of 80% of African American women are obese or overweight. For the first time in 200 years, because of obesity and the complications that come along with it, Our children are expected to not live as long as their parents. Um, and and so childhood obesity tends to evolve into adult obesity,
Right.
and so we find that our young people are dealing with these varied pathologies that come along with it, including, again, the hypertension, type 2 diabetes, and higher episodes of colon and rectal cancer, which is the second leading death of cancer behind lung cancer. And
But
these
our
numbers.
children aren't even as half as active as we were growing up. Come on, we played the kickball. We made up games and played
Yeah.
hide and seek and all kinds of stuff.
Mhm.
But let me ask you this question.
Yeah.
How can we inspire people now to embrace the change of getting up, of literally getting up?
Yes. I believe that's in Deuteronomy, the Lord himself, chapter 30, I believe it is. He says to the people, of course, this is Moses' final sermon to this next generation. That Joshua is about to lead into the promised land. He makes a statement. He presents to them, a powerful proclamation and a challenge. He says, choose life. He says, I present before you both death and life. He says, I pray and I hope that you choose life and live. It's a matter of choice. Again, we can look at the truth of where we are in front of us, or we can choose to take the mindset of Tabitha. Now, I love Tabitha. She's an amazing icon of the faith, but it would appear, the text seems to imply that she was negligent when it came. I think a case can be made for the probability of her being negligent when it came to her own health and well-being. Was this a mindset, the fixed kind of mindset that we so frequently encounter amongst ourselves, as to where, again, we're just indifferent? What is it? Do you really want to live? I've come, said the Lord, that you might have life, have it more abundantly. Oh my God, my Father is rich in houses and lands. Above all, he prays that we prosper and be in good health. Well, when are you going to start believing that? When will we put the rubber to the road? I just remember that term. Instead of practicing this theology of osmosis, of divine osmosis, we don't have to participate. God will do it. He's going to get this weight off of me. I'm going to keep drinking these Pepsis. I'm going to keep on eating all of this processed food and all this sugar. And I'm just going, I know it's making me bigger and bigger. And all of that. And I know I'm having challenges walking up the stairs and breathing, but the Lord will work it out. You see, that is not Christianity. That ain't even good sense. That's denial of our own reality.
So how do we get up? How do we get up? How do we move? How do we move into actuation of doing something, of acting, to take care of our bodies where self-care is concerned? We're living. Yes, he's come to give us life, and more abundant life, if you will. He wants us to live. I'm reminded of the song, "Look and Live, My Brother Live." Look to Jesus down and live, right? So how do we move into living where we're losing some of this weight, if not all?
Yeah. Well, the first thing is we have to confront ourselves with the truth about ourselves. I've learned that you'll never conquer what you won't confront.
Mm.
You'll never fix what you won't face.
Mm.
We have to embrace the truth about ourselves. There's this thing. There's this thing that I heard a guy say on a television program earlier this week. He says, and it's a brother. It's one of those BET joints. And he says, he's responding to these sisters talking about how thick they are. Now, and yeah, baby, I'm thick. No, he said, baby, you ain't thick, you fat.
Call it what it is.
You got to call it what it is. At some point, we have to surrender to what's true. It's so easy to remain stuck in denial about our own truth, that we can become complacent. But then what explains this complacency? Could it be some mood issue? You see, why are we chronically engaged in terms of acting or behaving in ways that we know are keeping us where we are? We're exercising behaviors that are further endangering our health. You're too big. But I think that you are in denial. Your doctor has warned you. But yet you remain indifferent. So you have to confront the truth within yourself about yourself. We'll never conquer what we won't confront. But then number two, we must engage in a new kind of behavior that will bring a different kind of result. We, get a personal trainer, get a coach, get someone that you can connect to, that knows what he or she is talking about, that can help you to achieve your goals, give you the motivation that you need to get on the path toward change.
And what if I can't afford a personal coach?
Well, I tell you, in these awesome days of innovation and technology, there are services out here now where you can hire really good trainers and coaches to talk with you and show you online, how to move, what to eat, and you can engage with them 3-4 times a week, and that's what, or even more. Actually, believe it or not, I'm coaching about 7 people right now, and believe it or not, I'm coaching people for weight loss right now. You might be surprised how many people are challenged emotionally. And these emotional challenges fuel their these chronic obsessions. Many of them are grieving.
Yes.
And a lot of this weight gain has been associated with grief and anxiety. And so one of the ways they cope is to eat, as I mentioned at the beginning of the.
No, you're absolutely right, because I know when we first came into the pandemic, I had some family members who was on a ventilator, and I remembered in 1 week I put on 10 pounds.
Yeah.
1 week. I watched that weight crawl up just like that. And I remembered the stuff I ate, but it was all because of the stressors of this individual on a ventilator in the hospital, family member. I'm praying, but I'm also eating, and I'm eating a lot. And when I noticed that, I said, my God. And I checked myself throughout this pandemic of not putting on anything else and losing that and trying to keep that off and to go, down even
Yeah.
further. But this has been a blessing, Dr. Lee. I cannot thank you, Reverend Henry Lee Clay Jr., enough for your time, your talent, your expertise. How do people find you? How do they order your books?
Well, my books are available on Amazon. Okay. And I can be reached. My email address is hclayjr. That's hclayjr at yahoo.com. And my website is hleeclayministries.com. And of course, listen, you'll find me on YouTube. You'll find me on Gmail. I'm sorry, on Google. Hey, my phone number, 973-902-2882. And finally, you can hit me on oh boy, what is the most common and the most powerful and the most popular social media site?
Instagram, Twitter.
I wish I could say it was Twitter and Instagram in my world, but it's Facebook. All right, so you can hit me up on Facebook under Henry Lee Clay. I am on Instagram, but I don't really know how to have yet to really get Instagram.
Right.
But hit me up on Facebook, and let's get going on growing. And let's get moving on becoming better and healthier versions of ourselves.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And thank you all for watching. Please do not forget to subscribe, like, and share. Share this video with someone you love. You should share all my videos with someone you love, especially if you have been watching them every Monday. Share it with someone, like it, make a comment. God bless you all. Thanks again for watching, and good morning. God bless you. Bye-bye.